Hello friends, my name is Marina and this is Rapunzel Fiber Arts. So today we've got another spinning project for Tour de Fleece. So I just finished this skein, which was some blue fin top from Sadie Spins yarn. I have a whole video talking about how I made this yarn, the whole process from start to finish. So if you haven't seen that and you would like to, I will link it up in the card, and you can go check it out. But today what we're going to be spinning is this rainbow. And this looks like it's all one braid, but it's actually 6 different braids that have been kind of braided together. But once I undo all of this, it's going to be 6 smaller strips of 6 different colors. This is also fin by the same fiber producer. This is Sadie Spins Yarn. She does a lot of fin and hand spun yarn on her website, which I will link below. So yeah, my plan is to just go ahead and spin this all the way through from red to purple, and then I'll break it up into mini skeins after I've chain plied it, because chain plying maintains your color sections. So I chain plied this, which isn't as obvious because it's all one color. It's all the blue, even though there's some variegation in there. It's all blue, so it's hard to tell that I chain plied. But once I chain ply this, it'll be obvious that I did that. And then while I'm skeining it up, I will just do smaller skeins and cut the yarn at each color break. So that's my plan for that. I'm going to go ahead and get started spinning this, and I will keep you updated as I do that. All right, friends. So here you can see those braids undone and in little individual balls of color. Here I go just splitting the fiber. I'm going to split it in half the long way and then split it in half again on both halves to get it into quarters. And I do that because it makes the spinning process a little bit easier. There's a little bit less pre-drafting that you have to do, and the fiber is a little bit smaller and more manageable. It's kind of like just making it into bite-sized pieces. So I typically will split the fiber like this when I'm spinning. It'll give you, if you have hand-dyed top, it'll give you shorter color transitions, which I also like, so that you don't have like big sections of color. You have little sections of color. It doesn't really apply to this fiber because it's fairly one color, but if you had something that was like pink and blue and purple, then splitting it would make those color repeats a little bit shorter. So now I have gone ahead and pre-drafted the first foot or so of this, and I'm just going to take my leader thread, pass that bit of fiber through the end of my leader thread, and then start adding twist and doing some basic drafting to elongate and thin out the fiber so that it's pretty easy to spin a nice thin yarn, which is what I'm going for. I want a fairly thin 3-ply, probably around a DK weight before it's washed. We'll see how it poofs up once it's washed though. I still haven't washed the blue fin. That's going to be a future video where I do a big washing project. But in the meantime, I'm not entirely sure what weight this finished yarn is going to look like. So here you can see I've sped things up a little bit. I'm just spinning away, filling up the bobbin first with the red, and then I will progress to the orange, yellow, green, etc. But for the meantime, I am just working on filling up this bobbin with this pretty fin top from Sadie Spins Yarn. I enjoyed spinning this quite a bit. I go into some detail about some of the things I experienced with the all blue skein of yarn, which again I have linked in the cards. but I wanted to mention here that I noticed the fibers were pretty flat, not very crimpy, and I had actually asked my guild about that because I was curious as to why that was, and they enlightened me that in mill-produced top, they actually heat treat the fibers and kind of iron them, and that makes it so that the fibers are a little bit less chaotic, and it's easier for the machine to work with them. There's not quite so much crimpy action going on. So here you can see I've mostly filled up the bobbin at this point. I'm working on my final color and it is looking absolutely beautiful. I love that blue, that purple, that green that you can see on the bobbin right now. Oh, there's Bear getting settled on his bed. And I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up this clip of me spinning, and then we can go ahead and get to the plying process. So that's very exciting. All right, friends, we have spun our singles. I absolutely love these acre work bobbins where you can see the progression of the yarn. So we've got red, yellow, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then this purple on the very outside. And this is that fin that I showed you at the beginning of the video, just all spun up. So now we're gonna go ahead and chain ply this. Chain plying, I've talked about before, is just like a big crochet chain. So when you're making the first foundation row of crochet, you're doing the same process, but you're making those chains very long. And then you're adding twist, and that creates a 3-ply from one bobbin of singles that results in no leftovers, and just makes a pretty nice yarn that maintains color transitions. So like I'll have all of the purple, all of the blue, all of the green separated out, and then my plan is when I go ahead and skein this, I'm going to cut the yarn at the color transitions and then have a bunch of mini skeins, 6 mini skeins. So I'm going to go ahead and start chain plying this. I'm going to show you what I do with my hands, and then also the bobbin filling like I usually do, and I think it should be good. So stay tuned and we will get this all plied up. All right, so I've got my wheel here all set up to ply. I've got my bobbin here on the Lazy Kate all ready to go, just out of camera, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So when you chain ply, to get started, you take your single and make a loop and pull that loop through the loop of your leader, just like that. And then you have a loop to work with for your chain plying. So I'm going to start adding some twists to this yarn so it can get going. Work that twist down all the way to my loop. And then what I'm going to do is pull a loop through that loop, and that's how you maintain the chain. I made a little rhyme there. So to maintain the chain, you just keep going like that. So I add twist, let it onto my wheel, catch the single, pull a loop through that loop. And then I'm going to just carry on like this for the entire bobbin. Plying like this can get tedious, boring even, but it's a necessary part of making yarn. So if you enjoy the process of making yarn, it's a necessary part unless you are so inclined to work with singles. I don't like working with singles, so I ply my yarn. Usually I like to set up with an audiobook, some music or something to watch. I've heard people say you shouldn't spin or ply to music because the rhythm can mess with the rhythm of your spinning. I don't have a problem with that. Some people do. But just do your personal preference, whatever works for you. If you don't like spinning or plying to music, then don't. And so I just carry on with the same manner of plying, pulling one loop through the other to make a 3-ply, and then letting the twist down. And I'm just going to repeat this until I'm out of yarn. It'll take me a while. It might take me a couple hours in total. We'll have to wait and see. But I'll take breaks, stand up, stretch, go have a meal if it's time. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on doing this and keep on working.
All right, friends. So I have sped this up a little bit because I think I did a pretty good job showing you exactly how chain plying works. So now I'm just speeding it up, kind of showing you how I get into the rhythm of it, how I chain ply. Chain plying is also sometimes referred to as Navajo plying, but it's not a traditional Navajo technique as far as I know. So I believe that I've heard that it is in fact not a Navajo technique. So that terminology is generally not what should be used. You should call it chain plying because it's like a crochet chain. So I am just carrying on doing that, working on filling my bobbin up with some of this purple fin that I'm plying. You can start to see it building up on the bobbin a little bit there in the corner, but in another moment I'm going to go ahead and switch to an overhead view so that you can watch as the bobbin fills up, because I find that satisfying. I imagine other people do too, and I like to just show you that process. So in another moment, I think we're going to switch to that overhead view, and you'll be able to watch as the bobbin fills. This wool was very good for chain plying. I had gone ahead and rested the singles for 2, maybe 3 days while I worked on other projects, and I just do that so that the singles have some time to rest. They lose a little bit of their active twist that makes it a little bit more difficult to ply, and it's much easier to just work with singles that have rested for a day or two, so that the yarn is a little bit less chaotic, especially with chain plying. When you're pulling loops through other loops, it's really good to rest your singles so that you don't have a really chaotic time trying to ply. Sometimes I find if I try to go straight from singles to plied yarn, when I've just finished spinning the singles, it gets messy. Especially, like I said, chain plying, when you're working with pulling loops through other loops instead of just taking 2 different bobbins and plying them together, it's a little bit more challenging. So resting your singles is a really, really good idea, and something that I definitely appreciated as I was wrapping up plying this skein. I also was unable to fit all of the yarn on this bobbin, so the red is going to go on a second bobbin.
All right, friends, so we have skeined up all of our yarn. It didn't end up all fitting on one bobbin. Plying often is a little bit airier than the spun singles, so I only ended up getting 5 ounces on this bobbin. I was worried that the 6th this 6th wouldn't fit, so I just separated off the red and chain plied that on a separate bobbin. Because I'm going to be doing that anyway and splitting this up into mini skeins, I figured doing that a little bit earlier in the process wasn't a big deal. So I'm really happy with this yarn. You can see we've got the purple and the blue and the green and the yellow and the orange all on this bobbin, and it looks pretty fantastic. I'm really, really happy with how this plied up. So I think it's going to look great. This red is beautiful too. I really like the dark and light, you know, colors in there that make it variegated and a little bit more visually interesting than just a solid red. So yeah, I'm very happy with what we've done over the course of the last couple of days. This yarn is gorgeous. I think it worked out just perfectly, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I hope you liked this video. If you did like it, feel free to thumbs up, subscribe, or comment, depending on if you want to see more like this. I love getting feedback, so let me know what you think, and I will talk to you again soon. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope you take care. Bye, friends.